Hey everyone, I'm so excited that you're here. And today I'm going to talk about food temptation. We're at that time of year going through the holidays where we are oftentimes struggling a lot with feeling tempted to eat a lot of things we don't normally eat. And here's the deal. I'm going to just start off by saying it is really important that you allow yourself to indulge in some treats this holiday season, but it's also important that you be mindful when you're doing it. See, the problem isn't actually that we like to snack or we like to have pie or that we like to eat Halloween candy. That's actually not the problem. The biggest problem, as with most things in life, is the all or nothing mentality with which we approach this particular topic. Now, first of all, I just want to point out that food is about a lot more than nourishing our bodies. Very, very few people actually can stick with an extremely rigid zero treats schedule. And I would even argue that a lot of the people that can probably suffer from an eating disorder called orthorexia, which is a topic of conversation for a different day, perhaps. But that kind of rigidity in your eating habits is an indication that something unhealthy might be going on with you. It's important to recognize that food is very connected to our traditions and our culture and our celebration, right? And that there's nothing actually wrong with that. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to allow your child to eat 2 pounds of chocolate because it's Halloween or the day after Halloween. That's not what I mean by that. But to say we can never have a treat, we can never have sugar, we can never have bread, for example, is incredibly problematic. As a person who's gluten free, I pretty rarely eat carbohydrates, but there are times when I like to grab a gluten free pita or a gluten free bagel or whatever else it is. And there's nothing at all wrong with that. The biggest problem a lot of times we face is that when we do this, we tend to beat ourselves up over it, right? So tell me if this sounds familiar. I say that all the time. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Maybe this is just me, that you have that pile of Halloween candy sitting on your counter, right? The stuff that didn't get given out because there aren't as many trick or treaters, or maybe your kids have a giant bag of candy from having gone trick or treating themselves. Maybe you don't have kids and Halloween's not your thing, but come Thanksgiving, you're going to have that pumpkin pie or you're going to have that apple pie or whatever it is. And if you host Thanksgiving like I do, that'll all be left in your house. You know, that work friend who brings in cookies at Christmas time. What happens though is we tell ourselves, I'm not going to eat this. I'm not eating that. It's bad for me. This is bad food. This is junk food. We condemn that food, right? Now, first of all, your brain actually knows what that is. Okay. This is not like deciding that something you've never had before is no good. This isn't like when I joke with my kids and I'm like, oh, yeah, we're having liver and onions. None of them have had liver and onions. They have no idea what I'm talking about. You know what that is. You know that that Christmas cookie tastes good. You know that it's going to give you that awesome dopamine hit. You know that it's going to be delicious, right? By the way, even when it's not. That's just the reality, even when it's not. So when you tell yourself you can't have that thing that you want that is delicious, and your brain's like, I want the dopamine hit, right? What happens is you become preoccupied with the thing. Okay. This becomes a like, ooh, you're walking by and you're like, ooh, I can't have that. Ooh, I wish somebody would hide that. Right. And it is in your mind. Okay. Now, side note for those of you who have ever tried to quit smoking, this is a similar thing as what happens when people quit smoking. And the more you say, I quit smoking, the more you think about smoking, the more you want to smoke, right? The more you say, I can't have that Christmas cookie, I can't have that piece of candy, I can't have that piece of pie, the more you want it. Okay. The more you desire it, the more you crave it. So you go and get a piece of Halloween candy. You're like, one piece won't hurt. And then you're like, well, I mean, they're really small. I could have two. Okay. After you have two, maybe three, you realize that you have completely screwed up. You've made this huge mistake. You ate the candy. You never should have eaten the candy. Why don't you have more willpower? Why can't you just be self disciplined? You know other people who don't do. Why can't you? What's your problem? I'm pretty sure that fitness guru on Instagram, she is not doing this right now. Your future self will be mad at you for this. Okay. Now, we all have some sort of dialogue that goes on in our minds when we've done something that we've forbidden ourselves from doing, and we are disappointed or frustrated in ourselves because of it. But here's the deal. Did you set a realistic expectation for yourself? No. At this moment, do you stop and pause and say, well, come on. I mean, let's be fair. That wasn't a very realistic expectation, right? That's not really a fair thing to force on myself, to say I can never have a treat at the holidays. That's a little too rigid. No, do we stop and get curious and say, what could I do? No, that's not what we do. What we do instead is we get so frustrated, so stressed out, so upset, and so angry with ourselves that we take the bowl of candy into the living room, start binging Netflix and binging candy, right? Because now we're emotionally eating the very food we were trying to avoid in the first place, the one that we said is so bad. We can't have it. Now we're emotionally eating it. And then what happens is we wake up the next day and we have a sugar hangover, maybe a headache, a stomach ache. Some of you may not have put this together until I just now said it, right? If you did it earlier in the day, you have a horrible sugar crash. You're irritable. Okay. It is extremely altering to your body chemistry to binge sugar. We know that. We absolutely know that that's scientific fact. It's altering to your body chemistry not to have a piece of candy from Halloween or a piece of pie from Thanksgiving or a couple Christmas cookies, but to binge it because now you are in a cycle of self punishment and self abuse. And now you have triggered an emotional eating response or a stress eating response. Now you're binging that food. That creates some really incredibly disruptive chemical things in our bodies, right? This is kind of like you wouldn't expect to drink an entire pot of coffee and go to bed. Okay. This isn't your fault. This is just what physically happens. This is what physiologically happens. Now, though, because you have done this, you've engaged in this, your sugar cravings are higher because your body is thinking, well, if I just had more sugar, then this would be better. Because what you're experiencing is a combination of feeling nauseous and overwhelmed by sugar, and also you're feeling a crash because you don't have enough sugar in your system to deal with all the insulin your body's produced to deal with all the sugar you ate. And so now you're like, if I eat sugar, I'll feel better. Okay. This is not uncommon. Sugar is highly addictive, y'all. This is a normal physiological response. You haven't done anything wrong here. Where you made the grave error was when you said, I'm not allowed to have that. I can't eat that. Okay. So I'm going to give you a couple of different ways to approach this to actually reframe this and change this. Okay. One is the phrasing of you can't have that is problematic. All right. It creates a thing in your brain when you say you can't have that that makes you seek it more. It creates a thing as if there's an outside external force that is making you do something. And we tend as humans to be pretty resistant to that because that hasn't been really safe as a thing to do, right? So just simply changing the phrasing to I don't do that is very, very different because then what you're doing is empowering yourself. And when you empower yourself, you also empower yourself to make a different choice. You empower yourself to make an exception, right? You empower yourself to be a little bit more flexible in your approach and to reduce the rigidity. And then you're not your child or reptilian brain is not like, we must have the thing. We must have it. Now your mind is like, we made a choice, right? We can make a different choice, but this is the choice I made for myself. It's much easier to stick to something when you feel like it's your choice instead of someone else's choice. By the way, this is also true for your kids. It's easier for them to stick with something if they make the choice. And apparently, I think I should do a video on this as well because this is huge and profound in all areas of parenting, right? So, for example, if you say, okay, well, and by the way, the younger your kids are, the more you need to limit these choices or it's overwhelming. So, if you say, you can have this Snickers bar or these Smarties, which one do you choose? They're much more likely to be satisfied with the one they chose rather than asking to eat a whole bag of candy. Now, that does not mean you can have one piece of candy from your bag. That gets overwhelming, and then they want all the candy in the bag. Okay. But I digress a little bit. So, what you want to do here is say, I don't. Okay. Now, you can say, I don't have more than one piece of pie at Thanksgiving. Okay. This is kind of a thing for me. I don't have more than one piece of pie on Thanksgiving. I cook Thanksgiving dinner. I love it. I make all my favorite foods, and I don't have more than one piece of pie on Thanksgiving. I oftentimes will have two slivers of pie. So I'll have the equivalent amount of one slice, but it's actually a couple different pies because I wanna taste the different pies I've made, right? But I don't eat more than one piece of pie on Thanksgiving. It's just the way it is, okay? You can say things like, "I don't keep leftovers of that in my house." If there's a birthday party and the cake didn't get eaten at the birthday party in my house, I either give it to somebody to take with them or I throw it away. I do not keep leftovers of cake in my house. I do not hang out in the break room at Christmas time or on Donut Friday. I just don't hang out there. That doesn't mean you can never have a donut. That just means you don't spend so much time there that you're going to eat a dozen of them, right? So, really creating healthy, loving boundaries for yourself as opposed to rules. Okay. And I'm going to repeat that because this is what life is really about. I've created healthy, loving boundaries for myself, not rules. Okay. I don't eat more than one piece of pie because I don't feel good when I do. I don't feel well when I do, right? I end up feeling kind of gross. And so that's why I don't do it. That's all. I can if I want to. I don't have a rule about it. I just love myself enough to create a boundary that feels good for me. That's it. It's that simple. That makes me feel nurtured and cared for, not deprived. Not restricted, nurtured and cared for. And so just changing that language a little bit, right? Saying I don't instead of I can't. Saying I have a healthy, loving boundary for myself instead of I have a rule. Those things make a huge difference in how you mentally process what's happening and how likely you are to be resistant to it versus compliant, right? This is just the way it is. This is a little bit of a head trick, and I understand that, but it works. The next thing that do is I have created another healthy, loving boundary for myself that I uphold all year long. I always uphold this. My healthy, loving boundary for myself is that I always nourish my body first. That's it. I prioritize nourishing my body. I also prioritize hydrating my body. Okay. And so, what does that look like? Well, because I prioritize nourishing my body, when I feel like I want to eat something that is not very nourishing to my body, I give my body something nourishing first. Why do I do that? Well, sometimes our food cravings are actually an indication that our body needs something nutritionally. Usually that's what it is because when your body is well nourished, you actually don't have food cravings, right? For lack of a better way of explaining it, it's a built in nutrient tracker. And so, what does this mean? As you consume things, okay, eat or drink, does not matter which, as you consume things throughout your day, your body keeps a tally of what vitamins and minerals you are getting from your food. Okay. Now, don't try to outsmart this system and think, oh, if I take supplements, my nutrient tracker will be happy. Your body also needs whole food to feed your microbiome and to keep you healthy and to keep everything going in your body. So, no, you can't avoid eating real food and just take supplements and eat candy. It does not work that way. Okay. But your body has a nutrient tracker. Okay. And when you have had enough nutrients to fuel your body well, your body's like, I'm done. I'm good. Thanks. and you don't crave things. So a lot of times when you crave foods, it's either A, because you're addicted to them. Sugar and cheese are both highly addictive, for example, or B, because your nutrient tracker is missing something. Okay. And here's an interesting thing that happens when our nutrient trackers aren't full. Our brain often doesn't say, you really could use some kale right now. All right. Because our brains have been trained to seek calories when we are lacking in nutrients. Our brains are like, oh, well, we need to eat more food. And typically, especially if you live in a place where you have convenient food available and processed food, your brain is like, I need food and I need it now. And that means you're likely to crave something that's highly processed. Okay. Anybody else with chips? Okay. Chip cravings, right? And so, what you actually want to do, and a lot of times, by the way, I'll crave chips because my body is actually trying to tell me that I need something like carrots. So, what I'm craving is crunchy because my brain is like, there's something we're missing and it's crunchy. Okay. Um, it's kind of like a game, right? Like 20 questions. Your brain's like, and it's crunchy. And it's what else? What right? What like when you're trying to think of a word and you're trying to describe it in all these other ways. That's kind of what's going on in your brain. When you have enough nutrients, though, your body's like, we're good to go. And people have had this experience. I have this experience regularly. A lot of times, I remember the first time this happened, I was like, wow, this is so weird. And I actually remember that I went to eat somewhere and I ate a dinner. And at the end of the meal, I didn't feel full. I didn't feel bloated, but I also didn't feel like I could eat anything else. I felt completely and totally satisfied. Okay. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, you probably know my favorite restaurant in the world is this place called Stella's. It's in Traverse City, Michigan. And I remember very well that that's where I had that meal. I was eating my dinner and I was like, wow, I'm just done. And I feel great. I wasn't hungry for the rest of the night. I didn't have any cravings for any food of any sort for 24 hours. And I was like, that's weird. And that's when I came upon this particular piece of information. So, when you nourish your body, first, you reduce cravings. And when you reduce cravings, you're much less likely to continue eating the things that aren't as nourishing for your body. But here's the thing: once you eat your whatever, your carrots, your hard boiled egg, whatever it is that feels great to you, go right ahead and have the treat you want. Okay. You have nourished your body. You've given your body vitamins that it needs. So if you want the treat, go ahead. Right? Now, I always say 2 fun-sized candy bars is a treat, 1 slice of pie is a treat, and you all know what I mean by that. I'm talking about like 1, 10th or 1/8 of the pie. I'm not talking about half of a pie, okay? But that's a treat, right? A scoop of ice cream, not a pint of ice cream. So, have your treat. If you want another treat, nourish your body again and have another. Now, some of you are listening to me say this right now and you're thinking, that sounds like a lot of extra calories. So you're telling me to eat more. Okay. So listen, Cassie, you're telling me to eat more. Why don't I just eat the 2 fun sized candy bars and be done with it and not eat the carrots first? Because now I have the carrot calories and the fun sized candy bar calories. The reason is that your body actually still needs those nutrients. Just the truth. The other reason is, as you may have figured out from everything I have been saying, you're more likely to stop at 2 fun sized candy bars. Why? Because your body's going to say, nope, I'm good. I have my nutrients. I've gotten my dopamine hit. I'm feeling good. I don't need more. Right? I don't need more. So you're less likely to indulge in 6 or 10 fun sized candy bars or a whole pie or 10 cookies if you actually just follow this simple rule. And I think that we can all agree that even if you do this twice after dinner, okay? That the caloric intake of 2 servings of baby carrots and 4 mini candy bars is not the same as the caloric intake of 10 candy bars. And here's the truth. This is the big truth. Even if it is the same, let's just say, even if it is the same, okay? Here's the big secret that you probably don't know if you've been following the diet industry in any way, shape, or form. All calories are not the same. Okay. The way that 100 calories of broccoli affect your body is very different than the way that 100 calories of gummy bears affect your body. And when I say that, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense because it takes a lot more energy, meaning you burn more calories trying to digest the broccoli. The broccoli is really good and healthy for your microbiome, and the gummy bears are not. The broccoli is going to give you nutrients that the gummy bears won't, right? So there's a whole lot of reasons why 100 calories is not just 100 calories. It does depend what you eat. One of those reasons, y'all, is blood sugar. When your blood sugar spikes, especially when it stays spiked, it actually very much impacts your body and increases your inflammation levels. It also causes all kinds of metabolic change in your body and signals your body to store fat, to store extra calories. Now, when you eat particularly a green vegetable, so this is just a little hint, particularly a non-starchy vegetable, right? Before indulging in the sweet snack, it actually helps keep your blood sugar from spiking. And that means that you don't get that extreme crash. That means that you're not as likely to store what you've eaten. That is hugely impactful to the long term outcome of having those candy bars or having that pie or having those Christmas cookies. Okay. So let's simplify this process. Ready? We're not going to use terms like I can't, and we're not going to set rules for ourselves this holiday season. Instead, we're going to use words like I don't, and we're going to set healthy, loving boundaries for ourselves this holiday season. Things that we know help us to feel our very best so we can enjoy the holidays to our very best, right? We want to show up well. We want to feel great. We want to wake up on Christmas morning without a sugar hangover. So we're going to create healthy, loving boundaries for ourselves about the way that we treat ourselves and our bodies and our mental health through the holidays, right? And then what we're going to do as part of our boundary is we're going to create a boundary around nourishing ourselves and hydrating ourselves first. We're going to prioritize the things that are best for our physical and mental health through the holidays, because that's healthy and that's loving. Deprivation, not so much. Not so much. Let me know in the comments what you think about this. I really want to know if you've tried it. I have so many clients I have worked with who have implemented this into their lives, and it has made a world of difference. And I know many people have implemented it in many, many different ways. I know people have implemented it to get themselves to break bad habits, to create new healthy habits, to do things like okay, well, I move my body before I couch potato my body, for example. This is a absolute 100% game changer. And it also affects the way that you think about boundaries in your relationships. I mean, it is really, really incredible. So tell me how this is working for you. I cannot wait to hear it. I would love for y'all to be able to indulge in your favorite treats this holiday season 100% guilt-free and still feel really, really amazing. Remember to subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss a single thing. I have tons of holiday content coming up for the month of November and all kinds of content regarding relationships, boundaries, etc. Everything that you need to navigate the holidays really, really well. All right. I will see you all soon. Bye, everyone.